Xavier Worthy made his glorious return, but we lost Malik, Nabers, and everything else we saw in week 4. That's what we're talking about today on Stealing Bananas. I'm Ben Gretch. You can find the Stealing Signals newsletter at bengretch.substack.com. With me, as always, is Shawn Siegele from his new location. You can find all of his great work over at RotoViz. Got some concerned questions last week, Shawn, about no episode. You were not feeling particularly well. I got some people were worried about me because you ended up doing RotoViz overtime. They're like, you good? But no, really, it's just a scheduling thing. It's a timing thing. We do the Sunday night shows because obviously I write all day for Stealing Signals on Monday and Tuesday. So in the past, we've done Sunday night shows or we've done later in the week. Later in the week became tough for our schedules this week as well. I wound up going to 3 pretty huge sporting events in the Seattle area. I went to 2 Mariner games as they clinched their first division in 24 years, my favorite baseball team. And then my UW Huskies hosted Ohio State Saturday. Tough loss for them. But my schedule got pretty busy in there. And then you were doing some stuff as well. So we just weren't able to navigate a late week episode either. We're going to have to do an in-season 2026 first and second round catch-up episode here pretty soon, later in the week. One of the times. We always like to do that after a few weeks. That would be a fun one. I was thinking about that watching the games today, but it's been 2 weeks. We have not talked on the show. You and I have talked on, like doing our waivers and stuff, but sorry to all the listeners. They were sad that we weren't here last week. We are back. You are feeling a little better, which is great. You did go to a volleyball game today, right? And so you've made it through a decent number of games, but not all of them. So we won't be talking about every single one, but I think you've hit most of the fun ones. So how you doing?
Yeah, tried to get those and started with the Dublin game. Our producer, Colin Kelly, I believe, was there as media. So,
I didn't know that. He tweeted about it. I saw him talking about it on social. I didn't know he was there as media. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that is pretty fun. Ben, the only thing I was really interested in this game, well, a little bit just Carson Wentz in general, if he ends up being the QB. We got a lot of just regular Carson Wentz today, where you certainly feel like JJ McCarthy will be the quarterback again as soon as possible. If for no other reason, then you have to develop the guy who could potentially be good, because Carson Wentz can't be. Right? No. And they were trying to spin some things where he could be, Sam Darnold, he could be Baker Mayfield. But it's not actually the case that Carson Wentz failed in the ways that some of those guys did. He was an MVP candidate when he got hurt early in his career. He's gone the other direction. He really can't play now. And you see that because he's surrounded by stars, absolute stars. Now, the only thing that I really cared about just generally, though, was obviously Jordan Addison and how he was going to look in his return. He made some nice plays. He did open the offense up for Justin Jefferson. As we were putting the final pieces together for our starting lineup, suddenly I'm like, I don't think there was any points for my Vikings with this game almost over. And suddenly now some of these teams have points. It almost seems like Jordan Addison caught an 80-yard touchdown. But that's not what happened. He got a 70-yard pass where he stumbled 5 times in order to be tackled at the 1-yard line. And not even exactly tackled, but just, flopped down there. What were your thoughts on the return from a player that we have a lot of exposure to?
I thought you said it really well. I thought he opened up the offense. Greg Olsen is openly talking about that. Talking about it on the intro to the game that, this passing game has stumbled, but really they haven't had their other key guy. How important Addison is. Everything that was coming from the broadcast booth, I just thought was interesting because it echoed the ways that we've talked about it. At the start of the game, you immediately see Addison on the outside pushing vertically, and they're moving Jefferson into the slot, and he's getting all these targets. And you're like, this has not been this easy for Jefferson because Addison's not been in the lineup. It's very clear. And then Addison made a couple of nice plays. He made a really nice play on like a little bit of a back shoulder, 20+ yard gain on the sideline in tight coverage. He elevates over a defender. Was open a few times where he just didn't necessarily get the ball. It seemed like there was one that got deflected at the line of scrimmage that went for an interception where he's sitting between the zone where he's supposed to be. Doesn't work out for him. And then, he did have one tough drop, which was frustrating because typically he takes advantage of his opportunities. It was one of the really exciting things about Addison is he's a really good player. First game, hasn't really even had the practice reps and all of that. Those things are going to happen. But later he gets open deep. The thing you said about the stumbling, I had to watch it like multiple times. I was so frustrated. I was like, how did he not score? But also, I mean, the Carson.
We're talking about like the fastest linebacker in football ran him down. It's like kind of ran him down, but I mean, Ben, what was your count on the number of stumbles? Because the ball's in the air and he starts to flounder around. He's like, he's going to catch it as a punt, but he's already lost his balance.
Yeah.
Then he gets going again, and you're like, oh, now he's fine. And then he starts stumbling again. You're like, you're just running in a straight line away from a linebacker.
Okay, but he had to wait so long, and then he had to turn, and if Wentz could have got that ball upfield at all, I mean, he's behind the defense, and like you said, he had to field it as a punt. It was a bummer. He got tackled at the 1 on. It was over an 80-yard gain, right? Weren't they inside the 20? I mean, 81, I think it was
81.
81-yard gain down to the 1-yard line, and you don't get a touchdown out of it when you're in every one of our lineups. It was rough. That was about what I talked to you as we were setting our lineups for the normal slate. I had already seen that, and I didn't know if you had, so I didn't comment on it. But I was like, I just want to tell you how annoying this was. But yeah, I thought Addison looked good, and I thought you talked about Wentz the way that I would too. I forgot with Wentz how much he just holds the ball and stands there like a deer in the headlights, and then tries to do that like duck thing where he just bends at his waist, and sometimes he could like duck over an entire defender. But like, why do you always try to duck under? And then most of the time he just gets sacked, right? Like, why are you always trying to duck under like NFL defensive linemen? Just like step into a throw or scramble or do something. Like, what are you like? Why are you constantly ducking down in the pocket? It's a very weird response, but he just stands in the pocket, holds the ball forever, and you're just like, you have no internal clock. You have to get the ball out. But then, when he does get the ball out, it's not particularly strong either. It was rough. Yeah, no, I mean, in the same ways that you were describing it, I was hoping that maybe he could be a little bit more like a Darnold or a Baker or a reclamation project. Those guys get the ball out in rhythm and on time. I mean, that's the big thing. Like I talk bad about Darnold all the time, but the biggest thing Darnold's doing well right now in Seattle, they've not played from behind at all. He has not had to throw, in a chasing 7 or chasing 14 situation. They've been in neutral scripts, I think, in every single game, if not in strong positive scripts. But because of that, they can do the run game and then build a pass game off the run game. And it's all about, play action, roll out, throwing in rhythm. And he does do that. He does typically get the ball out.
And I mean, this isn't really what the show's about because the Thursday night game is past us. But a couple of those plays, like has been happening all season, when they actually needed to throw late, some of those throws to Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, granted, JSN is playing out of this world, but the throws are fantastic. They're absolutely perfect.
Yeah. He can definitely do that in rhythm and make those big throws. The things that Darnold does well, he does really well. I don't know what Wentz does well. I don't know if there are things that he does well. I don't know how I would describe those. But anyway, we don't need to spend too much time on the London game either, unless you have other big thoughts. I mean, Metcalf looked good.
Yeah, but we didn't rank him very high, and I think that was right. And we continue to see it's right by the fact that Aaron Rodgers refuses to throw down the field now. Aaron Rodgers had 200 passing yards in a game where DK Metcalf had an 80-yard catch and run. So, I mean, the overall upside for this offense, I mean, Calvin Austin has had some good plays this season, but 2 for 13 in this game. He's not playable. One of the things, as someone who used to be on the 0 RB countdown years ago when it seemed like he was a potential breakout candidate, Kenneth Gainwell actually played extremely well in this game, which, I mean, if you have Warren or actually picked up Caleb Johnston, I think, for one of our teams, Ben, this week, because there's still a very real scenario where he becomes something in the second half of the season, even though I don't really like to play these Steelers backs. I say that, though, in a game where Kenneth Gainwell scored a ton of points and looked good, which, again, not good for the other guys because you know that Arthur Smith wants to play him as much as he can.
Definitely. They did use Johnston a little bit, but, I mean, not a lot. They went Gainwell as heavy as Arthur Smith has really ever gone with one back, which I was curious what they would do there, whether they would use Trey Sermon a little bit, which they did not at all. They did use Caleb Johnston for a little bit. When they got Johnston on the field at first, they threw to him once, and he looked like a baby deer trying to catch the pass, which is how he's looked. He looked in the preseason. Like, he's not playable in passing situations. Like, he was really struggling in the preseason with just the pass protections and multiple drops in the passing game. And then, he had the huge blunder in the return game in the Seattle game that essentially cost him a chance to win that game. They were tied. Seattle makes a field goal, makes it a 3-point game, and he just gives them a touchdown to push it to 10 before the Steelers get the ball back. They go from a tie game, and then they give up 10 points. And, we're in the fourth quarter. We're not able to get back into this. But they did give him a series of carries in one stretch where he didn't look as bad as he looks in the passing game and in the return game. So I'll say that. I wouldn't say that he looks like a particularly great runner either, but that's obviously what he was at Iowa, and what they drafted him for is to be a between the tackles runner and to be an effective, ground option. And I could see that in the second half still developing, but yeah, no, Gainwell looked really good. And I was sitting there watching it going, hey, I guess I remember when he was coming out, and I remember Pat Kerrane really liked him, and the people who do a lot more prospect work than I do liking this profile. And he was a really fun dude out of Memphis, right? One of that series of guys out of Memphis.
Yeah, he was on the list several years because he looked like one of these guys who could eventually be something. And certainly before the Eagles had Saquon Barkley, he was the guy who always kind of looked like he would break out. And, they would bring in guys like Swift. They would bring in these other players. But, you're tempted to say if they had just really given Gainwell a chance. Now, he didn't flash last year in his limited opportunities. Very limited, obviously, around what Saquon Barkley was doing. It's frustrating that it comes at this point, but still cool. He looks good. So yeah. I think when you have Warren sitting out today like he was, it's bad because he's going to lose work simply because Kenneth Gainwell does what they want to do. And the weird part about it too is that even though the Steelers are a team that doesn't look particularly good, seems like they're going nowhere. It seems like they're just mostly biding their time as they have been for years and years and years, but they're 3-1. It's certainly not how the coaches are looking at it, certainly not how the players are looking at it. And especially now when you think about what has happened to the Ravens and the Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to win this division going away, or they're positioned to. And they're going to be playing all of these games like playoff games, and we've got a real shot in the AFC.
They're not winning this division going away. They're 2 games up on the Ravens. That's not going away.
Wasn't today apocalyptic for Baltimore?
Okay, let's go to that game.
You go into this game, right, and both teams are saying there's urgency but not panic, which certainly is the way that you should approach it. In some ways, it's more – you go in thinking there's more pressure on the Chiefs because the Chargers are off to such a fast start, because we know the Broncos are good despite their record, because you already have that head-to-head loss to the Chargers, because you have all of these key offensive guys out, and because of that Super Bowl loss dented your sense of inevitability, even though the AFC side has never given them trouble in the playoffs. But you're on this run now where you've lost a bunch of games in close proximity to each other. It was just not something that we have seen from Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And if they lose this and go to 1-3, you're talking about a changing of the guard type of situation. Whereas it felt like the Ravens could lose the game and still would basically be fine. But the way they lost it, by not just getting dominated, which in its own way is probably also fine, but with the injuries that they continue to sustain and now where the roster is, that seems pretty problematic.
Yeah, I think that's fair. When you say going away, it's like they're going to need to keep extending. A fun stat on the Steelers, they had 313 total yards today, which is not particularly good in a win. They had fewer total yards than the Carson Wentz led Vikings, who had 372. They obviously had an 80-yard catch in the game. That was, Sean, a season high by 42. Because going into the game, their season high was 271 through 3 games. They were 2-1, despite not having more than 271 total yards in any of their first 3 games against the Jets, Seahawks, and Patriots. Like, they haven't been playing anyone particularly good. They were 5th in the league in yards per play allowed coming into the game. They'd allowed at least 369 yards in every game, and they just did again. They're getting outgained in every game by a mile, but they're 3-1. Anyway, they're not going to – they go on a bye 3-1, and they're doing amazing. I don't think they're going to win the division going away was the part that I was taking exception to.
Well,
but I do think what you're saying about Baltimore is very valid, and I do think they're in a concerning spot with where the roster's at. I haven't heard anything about Lamar. They were speculating – Tony Romo was speculating on the broadcast that he may miss multiple weeks. He's like, that hamstring, whatever, that may be a long while. I was kind of hoping they were just taking him out as a precautionary measure because the game was pretty well in hand at that point. But yeah, there's been, several other injuries on the offense, but I don't know. I guess this is the first game that the Ravens have actually looked like they weren't competitive because they lose in week 1 in a game where they actually kind of dominated the Bills and they kind of blew the game. And then last week, the Lions outplayed them, but out executed them. They were very good on offense as well. Both teams played very good offensive football. So
if you're correct for the injuries or just say that they're going to get guys back, I think it would have still been very fair to say coming into this game that the Baltimore Ravens were the best team in football.
Yeah.
But I mean, this was apocalyptic.
This was bad. This was a bad loss. The Chiefs are not a team right now that should be able to absolutely dominate you, as you put it. Now, having said that, how fun was it to see Xavier Worthy back? I didn't know what to expect. We sat him on a number of teams because of the health stuff, just not being really entirely sure. And not only, again, this is going to sound somewhat biased as it sometimes does, but we were talking about the Addison stuff and saying the way that he changed the Jefferson thing. I mean, to be clear, they were talking about that on the broadcast. Xavier Worthy made everyone on the entire offense better. Just being in there, everything looked better. It was like, oh, everything's going to be okay. The Chiefs offense has looked horrible. Every week has looked like they have no good players. Nothing they're doing is working. Patrick Mahomes is trying to put on a Superman cape every game. He's scrambling way more. He's taking on contact. He's doing all of these things. No one else is picking him up. It's clear that every time he's looking downfield, nobody's creating separation. How bad must Hollywood Brown be? How old must Travis Kelce be? Nothing's working. You put Xavier Worthy on the field, suddenly Travis Kelce can work off of that a little bit. Hollywood Brown's making some plays off of that a little bit. They first play of the game, they go to Worthy. A little bit later, 4th down, they go to Worthy. They go deep to Worthy multiple times. They did take him off the field when they were inside the 10-yard line, which I actually thought was, it's not ideal for fantasy, but pretty smart for his health. You can't use his speed to threaten vertically. You can still use it horizontally, which they like to do. And they used him a little bit in close to use that speed to create other space. But it's probably a situation where if you do use his speed laterally,
one of the times they actually scored in close was because he was actually on the field.
Yeah,
he went to the team that has red zone problems.
Yeah.
For some of the same reasons they have problems in the rest of the field as well.
For sure. But I do think using him there, or the reason they weren't, that makes sense, is it probably increases the likelihood of a big hit. And I also thought he did a really good job of protecting himself. He used his speed. Then when he got into traffic, he just kind of went down when he got corralled. I was really concerned about the shoulder, really concerned about these jet motion plays that they run. Oh man, he's going to get tackled hard. A little bit concerned about some of the deep targets, kind of like what happened with Jaden Reed, where you catch one, you got a defender draped on you, they can land on you. Again, we know that the shoulder being re-injured, popping back out is a major concern. He caught one of the deep targets and slid. He was playing this very smart. But one of the things that we see in football is the guys that are moving at a different speed can often protect themselves. The guys that start to like not know where they're supposed to be in those things can be a little bit of an injury liability for themselves and others to certain degrees. Worthy looked, I mean, again, it's going to sound biased. I didn't know what to expect. We obviously were very excited about him coming in. I was really bummed talking with you, maybe a little more off the air, that we didn't at least get to see like 2 quarters of him before he got that shoulder injury week 1.
And I'm not worried about being biased on this. People know how biased I am. You watch what he did today, like completely and totally injured. Like one of his shoulders still doesn't work at all. I think it's a separate play than the one that you are referencing, where he gained like 6 yards and there were some people around him. And all of a sudden, like he's going along normally and then he's just on the ground.
Yeah. He was like, I'm not going to get hit.
If he hadn't gotten hurt, Xavier Worthy would be the
top 5
wide receiver 2 in fantasy behind Puka.
He would be absolutely.
And I'm not saying he would sustain that through Rice returning, because Rice is going to be good too. Right. But in this 6-game stretch, he was going to be the overall wide receiver 2.
He was, I think it's, I sometimes rib you for hyperbole. I think it's absolutely accurate. I don't think you could be more accurate on that. I think week 1, we saw it as soon as he went out. Hollywood Brown winds up with like 15 targets in that game because they get behind, and that's what the game plan was. And they just like, were like, okay, we're going to have Marquise Brown do all the things we had in the game plan for Worthy. And then, you know, they do some different things in weeks 2 and 3, but here in week 4, we see it, even though he's hurt and he's only been out for a couple games and he's probably not 100%. They're like, yeah, no, the whole offense is built through him. And he looks so much more comfortable in year 2. This was the point. This is the thing you talked about a lot in the offseason in making the case for him. What we saw in year 1 as a 21-year-old player is not who he's only ever going to be. This is a player that could develop. There's a lot of people that are like, he's just another speedster. He's just another whatever, Sky Moore. He's just another Mecole Hardman. Like, just because the Chiefs drafted a guy doesn't mean he's good. Xavier Worthy's profile was good before he ran the fastest time in combine history, but running the fastest time in combine history also is good. And he was good as a rookie. And now he looks like a guy who has actually taken a step forward into year 2 in his comfortability on the field, his ability to kind of navigate the little spaces he needs to with his speed, kind of the way that Jahmyr Gibbs uses his speed, where like Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't ever really take big hits or things like that. Or maybe Jameson Williams, a teammate of Gibbs, makes sense. But there are these guys that are really fast, but also have the football speed and the ability to move around the field and not just look like they're fast dudes who don't know what they're doing. Xavier Worthy looked really comfortable today. He looked like a much better version of himself than he was in 2024. And it immediately makes you think that he was ready all offseason and everything that we thought we might be seeing going into 2025 to have a huge start to the year. I don't know. I'm backing up what you just said. You already said it. I think he would be crushing right now. He obviously had a great game, and now I'm really excited to play him in week 5. Like I think he's going to crush, next week as well.
You mentioned Jameson Williams, so that just got me sidetracked with. It seemed like Detroit came into the day-to-day thinking, we're playing the Cleveland Browns. I mean, granted, Cleveland did just beat the Green Bay Packers, but, I mean, this is a chance to get Jameson Williams going. And they threw in pass after pass after pass. And by the end, they're like, you know what we should do? We should throw the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown for more.
I meant Jameson Williams in the ways that he moves around the field and the ways that his speed works. I didn't mean it in the ways that his unrealized air yards are going to be hilarious in the stats this week.
The other thing I kind of wanted to note is that they flashed on the screen when Worthy had his last catch and was up to the 5 for 83, that it was his career high. And it is, depending on obviously how you look at it. He did also have the 35-yard run. So over 100 yards from scrimmage today. But it's worth noting that in a 32-29 victory against Buffalo in the AFC Championship game last year, where they needed every yard, he went 685-1 and goes over 100 yards from scrimmage because he has 16 rushing yards in that game. And I know a lot of people don't want to give him credit for it, but 8, 157-2 in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, not exactly the career high, but that now gives us 3 basic games in a row where he's over 100 yards from scrimmage. Obviously, week 1 doesn't really count into that. Then the other thing that happened in this game, and it does get covered up a little bit because Isaiah Pacheco had a touchdown reception where they got him into space, and there was only him and a guy who was completely blocked on that side of the field. So he's able to run that in But Brashard Smith, I mean, he has a line that's 4 for 9 as a rusher. He also dropped a pass. And so you look at this and you're like, is that really that auspicious? But if you didn't get a chance to watch this game, I know most people did because it was the signature game of the week, but he looked fast. And it's just so night and day what he brings compared to Pacheco and Hunt. I mean, Hunt today operating basically as the guy, 13 carries for 34 yards. And the thing that was like at least mildly encouraging again, if you're a believer, is that they came right back to Smith after he had the drop, where it was kind of a drop and you got the impression that Mahomes wanted him to run the route differently. So that's kind of a twofer in terms of the mistakes there. They come right back to him. He looks fast.
Yeah,
when they start to get the pieces together, I had told you a couple of weeks ago the Chiefs were still going to be awesome, even though I thought they looked beyond the pale awful. And I guess I still think they're the best team in the AFC once they get their guys because their defense is fantastic. I mean, you compare what they did to the Ravens today with that very first game of the season and Buffalo, Baltimore. Now, every game is a little bit different. Baltimore not as healthy today. But like in this game, the other thing that you and I talk about some behind the scenes. Now, partly Derrick Henry kind of gets game scripted out, Justice Hill, 3 for 76. There are some things that happen here, but I mean, Keaton Mitchell would be a really nice piece to a Baltimore offense when it is as flustered as it was today.
Their next 4 games are at home against the Texans, Rams. They get a bye, then at home against the Bears, and they go at Miami. They go at Minnesota, at the Browns, home against the Jets, home against the Bengals. The Ravens are 1-3. The 3 teams they've lost to are the Bills, Lions, and Chiefs. 3 teams that played in the, at least in the divisional round last year. I thought it was conference championship, but not quite. The Lions, of course, did not make it there. But 2 notes. Xavier Worthy, you said he's had 3 straight 100-yard games. That is accurate. He also had 75-plus yards in each of his last 3 regular season games. I mean, more additional context on that. He did get brought along a little bit slow as a 21-year-old rookie. He didn't have 5-plus catches until week 13 of last year. He did in each of the final 5 regular season games, not including week 18 where he played just 1 snap. And then he did in all 3 postseason games. So his final 8 games, including the postseason, he did that stuff. You mentioned the 2 postseason games, and people might be thinking, oh, well, postseason doesn't really count compared to regular season. Actually, I mean, those 3 postseason games were 3 of the only 8 games where he was in a real full-time role. And really, it's more like 7 games. That first game where he had 5 catches, he still only played 59% of the snaps. It was the final 4 regular season games, and the 3 postseason games. And so when you bring those numbers into play, I think people, again, this is why we talked about the end of season so much as far as thinking about how things could build into year 2 for Worthy. But yeah, those last 3 games in the regular season as well, over 75 yards from scrimmage. Basically, his last 6 games now have all been 75-plus yards from scrimmage. They've all included some rushing yards in addition to the receiving. I guess that's not true about the Super Bowl. He did not have any rushing yards in the Super Bowl, but the vast majority of them are including some rushing in addition to the receiving. Brashard Smith, great call out. Going to definitely write about him and stealing signals this week. The term I used was that it felt like they were unleashing him a little bit. You've talked a lot about how he could play a role for them. They really like him. We've talked a little bit about that Jerick McKinnon role. It seemed to me in the early going, they wanted that. They were throwing to him with intent. The shotgun carry he got in the second quarter, maybe late first quarter, was exciting from the perspective that I don't think in the flow of the game yet that he's gotten a carry on an early down up the middle. There's been a couple passes in the first couple of weeks, but it felt like they were getting to that thing where they're like, yeah, we want to show that we're going to use him to run a little bit as well as throw to him a little bit. And it was Pacheco who really seemed like he was losing work. He winds up getting that TD late. I think the way that this played out is going to be really favorable for fantasy gamers who want to be early on this, where I don't think Brashard Smith's going to be all over everybody's radar necessarily. I mean, we're not helping if we're spending a huge segment on him, but you should be able to add him in your home league and stash him. It does seem like we might be moving toward more of him as this pass offense opens up, as Rashee Rice comes back and they have Rice and Worthy and everything looks so much more positive on the passing game. Isaiah Pacheco looks lost. There's nothing that that he's really offering you, other than some of the, like, when you want to run to win late in the games, they do like to go under center and have him in there. But they were even using Hunt, like you said, more than Pacheco for a lot of that, which was fascinating to me. It was more Hunt and Smith, it felt like, for a decent stretch of that game. They go back to Pacheco late. He gets that receiving TD. It doesn't really look like Brashard Smith did anything all that special in the box score. But as you said, if you were watching the game, if you were working through it, it definitely seemed like the beginning of that change that, certainly we've been hoping for, because Brashard Smith would bring a new element to the KC offense, a dynamic element in the receiving game out of the backfield with his speed. That's just going to make them that much more difficult to defend. So that's going to be super exciting. Did you have anything else on the Ravens side? I didn't really.
I want them to get the ball even more to the playmakers, but it was interesting to watch how they got away from Henry even when he was having some success. Now, he hasn't run that well against the Chiefs. I mean, the Ravens, some of the games with the Ravens and the Bills have flukily won. Some of the games with the Chiefs and the Chiefs have somewhat flukily won. But the Chiefs, they really seem to have the number of the Ravens here. I wrote a piece on the quarterback position last week. I think that what Lamar Jackson is bringing to the table is just completely different than anybody we've ever seen. I hope the health is fine, because I want to continue to see him out there and playing and leading this team and giving us as many exciting teams as we can possibly have. The NFL definitely needs them. But speaking of exciting teams, Ben, we actually had the two guys who, at least to me, seem like they are like the redraft. Like, if you were in a draft today, the guys who would be competing for the 101, playing in this Indianapolis, Los Angeles Rams game that had plenty of twists and turns. For a while there, it looked like the Colts were going to go to 4-0 and make a little bit of an argument for being the top-ranked team in football, considering that Rams team is very, very good. That's not what happens. The Rams do emerge victorious, and they have certainly a good argument as one of the top couple of teams, considering their loss probably shouldn't have gone down the way that it did. But Jonathan Taylor, Puka Nacua, they both look fantastic again. This game, sadly, because, otherwise it was a really cool moment for him emerging out of Alec Pierce's shadow with the Pierce injury. But man, Adonai Mitchell gets dinged on two back-breaking plays that do cost his team the game.
Yeah, one was one of the most chaotic plays you'll ever see. The catch was insane. I don't know if I've ever seen that one before, where he's engaged with the DB. His hands are kind of up around the DB shoulder pads. They're kind of hand fighting, grabbing each other a little bit. At the very last second, he releases his grip and catches it with like a basket catch, underhanded, and then also breaks away from the defender. It was just like, I'm going to hold on to you until I have to let go, and then I'm going to let go, and I'm going to catch the ball, and I'm going to toss you away like you're a little kid. And then, basically broke another tackle, stumbled like Addison a little bit, found some space, gets loose up the sideline. You're like, that was very impressive. And then instead of just, it's so funny because some of the players who fumble before crossing the plane, they do it out of idiocy, but he wasn't doing that. He was just moving the ball.
He forced a fumble him, of his own.
But he wanted to reach it across the goal line. Like, he wasn't trying. He didn't do the thing where they just dropped the ball. He was trying to reach it across the goal line, but because he was moving the ball around, it just slipped out of his hand, and it rolls right through the end zone. 75-yard play that then goes for a touchback. And then Tutu Atwell didn't do that. He got an 88-yard touchdown. And that's the difference in the game. One long touchdown scores, and the other one doesn't.
My heart really went out to him too, because not only did he fumble inadvertently, but realized it and certainly advertised to everyone and made a heroic effort to like a flying recovery, but you can't recover that ball. It's already out the back of the end zone. And then his holding penalty on the Jonathan Taylor long touchdown that obviously gets called back. I don't know.
Oh, I was wondering what the other play was.
I think the wide receiver should be allowed to do whatever when they're out on the bench. So
I was wondering what the other play was because I couldn't remember anything he did in the past game. The Taylor lost long TD to the hold was rough, and man, does Taylor look good. I did not. I think I did actually realize that was Mitchell in real time, but I did not realize that's what you're referring to right now. But makes a lot of sense there. Tyler Warren looks really good in this game. Back-to-back green zone rushes, gets a TD, continues to look like a focal point of the downfield passing game. I thought Daniel Jones looked a little shakier this week, and obviously they end up losing. He throws a late pick, but still looked really good managing the offense. You get Pittman, you get a little bit of downs, but Warren still looks like the focal point of the passing game. But yeah, I mean, Taylor looks like the best running back in football. I mean, these things are, difficult every week. Actually, I think I said that last week too. I don't know if I can say that because I want to stick to Jahmyr Gibbs on that one because Jahmyr Gibbs looks insane as well. I don't know. Is that one of the games that you've seen? Have you watched the Detroit game?
It is. He
okay. Yeah.
He is very good. I thought maybe you were going to flip all the way to Ashton Jeanty with the breakout performance. You're not willing to go that far yet.
I'm not, but he was fun. There's a little bit of Derrick Henry in him. He's not Derrick Henry, but there's the thing of if you bottom up immediately, fine. If you don't and you let him get going, he's running downhill and he's running at you in a way that's like, I know how hard it is to tackle me. All three of his touchdowns today featured him shedding a tackler and not just like stumbling through contact into the end zone, but completely shedding a tackler and then walking away from it and then walking into the end zone unscathed. Like I'm just unstoppable. Like you can't tackle me. That's how you get the ridiculous missed tackles, forced invasion numbers that he had in college. You see it today. The explosion, all that stuff that maybe has looked a little bit not as dynamic as you would expect from a top 10 running back is the way that I want to put it. He doesn't look slow or sluggish or anything, but I think people in the first couple of weeks have been like, he doesn't look like the greatest athlete of all time at running back. That still maybe looks that way. Like he looks fine. But what we saw today was that the special thing is that it's really, really hard to bring him down if you're in a one-on-one situation. And he knows it. He's going to attack you and you're going to have a really hard time stopping him, just the way that Derrick Henry does when he's in the open field. Again, different type of runner, same aggressive mentality of like, I know it's hard for you to tackle me.
Well, it's a little bit like the Scatterboo thing, but if you ran a 4-3 instead of like a 4-7, because you can run at the guy, and then when he commits, you just run around him. I mean, Jeanty, the thing that made him so unreal in college, as you were saying, is this combination of attributes where you've got the downhill aspect of it, you've got the long speed aspect of it, you've got the ability to, the lateral agility at speed element. You just don't have that many backs who put all of those together. I don't know if he will end up being the complete package of like a Bijan Robinson, for example, but I do think he's more electric than that. I think that he's harder to deal with in space than, say, a Robinson is. Robinson's most impressive talent is the smoothness with which a player of that size changes direction and can make guys miss. But Jeanty is just the more violent back, but also the more explosive back at the same time. We got to see that today. It'll be interesting to see how it kind of moves through the season, and if he can maintain that in a Raiders offense that still has lots of problems. He carried them so completely today. Another game in which they don't effectively get the ball to Jacoby Myers. They don't really get the ball to Brock Bowers. If you're in tight end premium, Bowers kind of bails you out with an okay performance with a couple of catches at the very, very end.
Another near miss TD chance for him, throws behind him. In week 2, he had an in-breaking route that Geno sailed. In week 3, he had a wheel route that Geno threw a little bit too far on the inside and, lands on top of the defender's head. Maybe Bowers, because of the knee, can't go up and get it. In week 4 here, he has an in-breaking kind of crosser, and he's running in the end zone again. Open enough to catch it, and the ball's up and, kind of behind him. That's been frustrating because he hasn't had the targets and the receptions. It would be nice if he had a touchdown or two.
Yeah. There were plenty of disappointing things today, but there was so much excitement around some of these young guys. I'm hoping that a few of the games I haven't seen feature some of that as well. But the other one that kind of didn't come out of nowhere, but it was interesting within the context of like somehow the Chargers managing to lose. I mean, that was certainly the most startling result of the day, but they managed to lose in a game where you could see why people are so excited. We're so excited. You could see the full thesis with Omarion and Hampton today. Now, last week, we had the situation where, in part due to the game situation and some injuries, he ends up catching all of these passes. And you're like, if he's going to catch passes, then this is a fantasy gold mine. Today, you're like, if they can get him to the edge, I was kind of chuckling today watching this game because the 54-yard run reminded me a little bit of the criticism I think I've mentioned from time to time from Maurice Jones-Drew when I was kind of watching a show where he was on YouTube talking about the running backs and had him ranked pretty low and was saying, well, he stops his feet and has a hard time getting going again. And I was like, that reminds me of sort of a young Derrick Henry. The problem with those guys is that if they don't stop their feet or they get to the edge, like, good night, they're gone. That speed to the edge and then to take it to the house from Hampton, that was really cool. Then I love seeing big plays. Mostly the football I felt like was pretty bad again in week 4, which was a bummer, but it did feature individual epic plays today. And that was fun. I mean,
it was.
The Bucky Irving touchdown was one of the coolest plays of the season and will be that way all year.
Just the wheel route where he gets behind the defender. And what was so exciting about that?
Well, it's just a long touchdown for Bucky, but it was also one where you get that downfield throw to the running back. The thing,
the air yards are always fun. Yeah.
We haven't really talked about this Chargers-Giants game. We'll get into some of these things, but that play, and certainly I know people are talking about this, but I would like it to be an even bigger thing. I think that you get it with some of the things that Ben Johnston wants to do. I think you get it a little bit with some of the things that the Lions do. Certainly there's a possibility of it with Jahmyr Gibbs. But you think about the NBA and the move in the direction of positionlessness. And I think the way that these NFL teams have to evolve to beat the defenses that are just clearly like not one step ahead of them, but 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, the offenses need to evolve to be able to have some positionlessness as opposed to sort of the arch specificness. It's not that we should only have one type of play. I love to see different teams do different things, and having even more of that would be great. And certainly we have some real specification on some of these offenses where you have so many different plays, you can run so many different formations, you have very niche roles. But the Bucky play is one where you're looking at that play, and Baker Mayfield had to hold the ball for a long time. His other guys weren't getting open, but you have this small running back who we joke about all the time, have the terrible tested athletic metrics, and yet is able to get deep down the field. And that took forever for his part of the route to develop and for him to get behind the defense. But because you have a guy who can run that and run like that far down the field, because he's beyond his defenders when he catches that ball. The rest of the play is just like jogging to the end zone. But to be able to run that play, most teams can't do it because they don't have running backs out there who can do it, in part because they're like, well, if teams are going to give us 5 yards to carry, but as you and I talked about again off air recently, running backs aren't doing diddly squat this season because the defenses have figured out how to take that away too. To have a running back who can be out there and make that play, I just think more teams have to have guys who can do that, and they need to have their offenses populated with those types of players.
I think that's a great point. I think we've seen it some. When you say that the defense are taken away, you mean the running back rushing stuff, but we've seen the running back air yards. Buffalo did it a good amount over the last couple of years. Cook didn't do it as much last year, but they had a big play to Ray Davis at one point, and they sort of tied Johnston out of the backfield in some matchup specific spots. And Cook was the year before had a bunch of air yards. They've been doing that for a few years. It's just that element of like, okay, as these defenses start to roll the safeties and do all these things to the wide receivers, if you get your running back, if you start to split them out wide sometimes in your shotgun formations and they just put a linebacker out there, you don't have to run him deep every time, but eventually you can just run him again. That's what you're saying. You get this matchup thing. That's the matchup to exploit. And there are several teams, I think, that do that at least a little bit. But it's a great point. I completely agree with you that in a league where the explosives are going away, you have to find the matchups that you can win. And the running backs, the dual threat running backs there's a game that you haven't seen yet, but anyone listening to this is probably yelling at their thing. So I have to say it. Like Bijan Robinson was the best example of this. You're going to see it today when you get a chance to watch that. But Bijan Robinson had a very developed receiving game today. He ran a wheel route. He ran in a little option route out of the backfield like Christian McCaffrey does. Ran a one where he just did one of the fast to the flats and Penix led him and caught it and had a lot of yak. Saw a lot of strong play out of him in the passing game. McCaffrey is another one, obviously, that we constantly see it from. We've been seeing it for years. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you from a macro perspective that this is like a huge response to what defenses are doing to take away some of the explosive plays for the wide receivers. Being able to have one of these running backs that can do this stuff in the passing game is so huge. Because you got to create explosive somehow, and especially now that they're taking away so much of the running. I mean, the Eagles are trying to do it a little bit with Barkley. They've been throwing to him more because they can't get him going running as much, but they were throwing to him a lot early in this game, trying to get him into space that way. It didn't really lead to anything big for him, but that's definitely been different this year. They did it a little bit with him last year, but not to the extent, I think, as they are, and I think it's a direct relation to the inefficiency running the ball, and it's something that I feel
like it'd be more viable on a team that could throw the ball at all. You look at some of those plays that Barkley made last year, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, anybody who didn't draft him. Now, again, part of the reason you didn't draft him is because they're not going to throw to him. But I mean, imagine what a weapon he would be on a team that would throw the ball to the backs, because those plays that you were mentioning, Barkley caught the ball downfield. I mean, those were downfield passes. Those plays he caught early last season, There were such signature plays.
He was second in the NFL in running back air yards last year to Ty Johnson because he did get vertical targets. Justice Hill is another one, rotational back, obviously, for the Ravens, where they threw downfield to him a little bit. Not so much today. His TD today was a little bit of a shorter one, but I know he had like some wheel touchdowns last year. I mean, they'll like some of these teams are definitely doing this stuff. I think it's huge for sure.
2 catches, 7 yards for AJ Brown.
Maybe we could get him running down the field.
There are some other steps. What? I loved the touchdown pass, though, to Dallas Goedert, because it wasn't just an underhand pass. It was like an underhand pass. He put some mustard on it. He's like, I can throw it underhand. Like, maybe the overhand passes are not working, but Dallas, try and catch this. He's like, as a touchdown, I'm good for it. It's like nobody else is going to score touchdowns today.
I think he had 2 touchdowns, and both of them weren't both of them underhand? They were both very short.
They were both gadgety plays.
Yeah.
The one was an underhand rocket.
It was a rocket. He was shocked by it. Everyone was shocked by it. It worked.
So a quick note from our previous discussion here. You were giving the Steelers a really hard time. They did average more yards per play today than the breakout Kansas City Chiefs with Xavier Worthy. This game here.
Okay, but they only ran 53 plays or something.
If they could, the Steelers would run 5 offensive plays.
Yes.
But can you structure the game so we don't have to play offense at all? And our defense isn't even that great, but we just want them to be out there. I mean, the Steelers, if they had Max Crosby, I think they would just quick kick. I mean, that dude absolutely wrecked everything that Chicago was trying to do today, for the first 3 quarters. And then at some point, the Superman thing gets a little bit tricky. Then this Eagles game today, where they scored 31 points. So again, partly they're going to, ask the question of what do you want from us? but they had 58 plays. They averaged 3.4 yards per play. And man, Baker Mayfield is just clearly better than Jalen Hurts. Right? I mean, there are other things going on. Jalen Hurts does jog 9 times for 62 yards. All of that matters. We know his ability on the sneaks matter. It would have been fun to talk last week when it was more topical with the, borderline execution legality of the sneak situation that they have. Watching Baker Mayfield battle back in this game, he throws the 40 passes, only completes 22, but with that, throws for 289 yards. Now, partly it's because you get the 2 70-yard touchdowns, but this doesn't take anything away from Emeka Egbuka, but Egbuka had kind of like a 2025 Devontae Adams type game today where didn't necessarily play that well. A lot of passes forced to him when he wasn't really open. Only catches 4 of his 10 targets. But when you have Baker Mayfield like forcing the ball down the field, actually attacking, playing old school football, playing real NFL football, and you get that 77-yard touchdown in there. I mean, again, he's in the midst of a great start to his rookie season, in part because he gets to play with the gunslinging QB. He makes the big play.
I don't think
I was rooting hardcore for the Bucs in this game, even though I don't have any preferences between the two teams, just because of the aggressiveness that they were going after this game with. And it really is unfortunate that Bucky fumbled. It didn't seem like it was a huge deal at the time because the Eagles were in control, but in the end, I mean, it more or less ended up being the difference.
The deep shot, I don't think you're off base there. Tom Brady was spending the whole breakdown detailing how his route was essentially a clear out route and the safety left him alone a little bit, and how it was essentially just a defensive mistake. Obviously a great play by Puka as well. And he was saying, awesome things, good concentration, all those things, but he just kept emphasizing that the safety had no reason to I think he said like fall like in coverage a little, like basically let him get behind him on that play. You said they scored 31 points, the Eagles. They had 200 total yards. They had a blocked punt return for a touchdown to start the game to go up 7-0. Their drives were an 8-play, 73-yard touchdown drive. And then on their third drive, they had a 6-play, 67-yard touchdown drive. They had a 12-play, 54-yard field goal drive. And late in the game, they had a 6-play, 25-yard touchdown drive after that fumble. 25-yard touchdown drive. So they had 2 good touchdown drives, one kind of okay field goal drive and a touchdown drive. Their other and a short touchdown drive at the end. Their other drives, I want to tell you about their punt drives. 3 plays, 7 yards punt in the second quarter. In the third quarter, 3 plays, -9 yards punt. Later in the third quarter, 3 plays, 7 yards punt. Later in the third quarter, 3 plays, -7 yards punt. In the fourth quarter, 5 plays, -5 yards punt. 3 plays, 0 yards punt, and 3 plays, 8 yards punt. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drives, I think, where they punted without gaining 10 yards. They have this uncanny ability to look completely rudderless and just punt it right away, or else put together, an 8-play, 80-yard drive. They do obviously do that. No one's saying they don't. And in terms of them responding and saying, hey, Nick Sirianni, it's been all in the media. His quote was all over the screen. He's like, I don't care what's pretty. Like everyone's talking about them, they don't play pretty football. And he was like, I don't care what's pretty or whatever. I care about winning games. And, they can say that. They won the Super Bowl and they continue to win games here this year. They are absolutely in that position. But it is not conducive to long-term victories to have that many 3-and-outs. I'll say that.
Well, you've invested a lot in a variety of different ways in your skill positions. And a week after A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and, very specifically A.J. Brown, had Herculean performances to rescue the Eagles from the brink of the abyss against the Rams, you reward those guys by completing 4 passes for 36 yards to them? It's going to be a problem, right? You can't go I mean, one of the reasons that Saquon Barkley was able to be so magnanimous about all of the vulture touchdowns last season was that he was still getting tons and tons of touches and was having a historic season. Now, it would have looked even better if it had had a ton of touchdowns on it and would be even more clearly one of, if not the greatest rushing season of all time. I mean, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are going to be frustrated. And A.J. Brown is in the midst of losing all of the credentials, losing the statistical arguments that he needs for people to look back on him a decade from now as one of the all-time greats. And I don't think it matters how good of a teammate you are if you're also that good and people are not going to look at you that way. Because, not everybody who looks back on this stuff, and even people who are familiar with the games, understand the Eagles won a Super Bowl, even some people understand A.J. Brown's yard per route history and those types of things. He's just not going to have the resume that similar caliber players have, and it's continuing to get worse. We saw a couple of years ago, right? I mean, the Eagles have not been the Chiefs where they're making it every season and they're winning a bunch of Super Bowls. We're not that far removed from a season where they melted down in the back half and it really seemed like everybody might get fired. I'm not saying that will happen this season. Their roster is immaculate, even with some of the injuries, even with some of the departures, right? This team is unbelievably loaded and certainly could very easily win the Super Bowl again, but you're not going to do it by saying things like, we don't care how we win. You have to do it by going out and playing well.
Yeah,
developing your team in the direction that you can beat the other best teams when the time arrives.
They're unbelievably loaded because Howie Roseman is not just the best, front office piece in the NFL. He's, I think, probably the best by like a lot, like more than second to 32nd. But Nick Sirianni's probably just a bad coach. And I'm sorry, like the Eagles fans are going to absolutely hate me. You're going to say that the guy who won the Super Bowl is a bad coach. I mean, like the way that he manages stuff. Now, obviously there haven't been major issues in those things yet, but it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to not try to develop the passing game more, to stubbornly try to win one way. What happens if Saquon Barkley gets injured? What happens if you get in a situation where some of your offensive linemen get injured or something and you're not able to win running the ball? You can't just expect Jalen Hurts to flip a switch and start playing at a high level as a high-end passer. You need to do these different things throughout seasons to have contingency plans in place and all that stuff. Now,
even if Barkley stays healthy, and they're playing such a terrible offense, they've neutralized Barkley's effectiveness as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. Last year, part of the reason that Barkley was so good and the receivers were so good is it was symbiotic. And right now we don't care about throwing the ball or developing any kind of a passing game or having any kind of, downfield offensive concepts that threaten defenses, clearly, because they're not getting anything done that way. And you have A.J. Brown, and you have Devonta Smith. It's absurd. I mean, even when they throw the ball, all they're throwing it to is Barkley, checkdowns. And it's the
inefficiency level is pretty stark, right? I mean, you think about one of the reasons that we can make these claims about A.J. Brown is because he does have that yards per route efficiency in the past. He had 9 targets today and averaged less than 1 yard per target.
He had a 2.99 yards per out run last year, career high. But yeah, they're not even. Yeah, it's a disaster. The passing game's a disaster. They're 4-0. I mean, what are you going to do? It's hard to make that case right now. I feel the same way you do, that it is, a little bit of the you can't they can't keep getting away with this, and I don't think they will. I genuinely don't think they will. Obviously, Eagles fans are entitled to feel like they will right now. The Rams blew that game last week. They absolutely should not have won that game. Chiefs probably should have beat them week 2. Dallas arguably could have beat them week 1. I mean, every single one of their games has been a 1-score win. We know that the Pythagorean wins method has been shown that you're supposed to regress those things when you think about predicting forward. They beat the Bucs today in part because of a blocked punt return for a touchdown. I mean, look, I'm not saying they're bad. They're not, like you said, their roster is incredible. They have so much talent because, again, they have an incredible general manager. They bring in they're the best organization in the league. I'm not like, as far as the way that they run things or right up there. Obviously, I'm talking to a Chiefs fan here who's going to tell me that I'm overstating it a little bit because the Chiefs have done a lot more over the last decade.
The Chiefs have done more. There are some roster building concerns where, like, if they had built like the Eagles,
they'd be unstoppable. Yeah, absolutely. The Eagles have done some incredible stuff getting all the talent that they've gotten onto this roster. I'm not trying to disparage what the Eagles have done, but they should be even better. That's what it comes down to. They have so much talent, and it's like, you shouldn't have to win this way. And I understand that you're winning, but like, it shouldn't be like this. And historically, again, the one-score wins and those types of things have tended to mean that these teams are a little more fragile and do, in some cases, fall apart and those types of things. Now, the Eagles are probably well-positioned to win one-score games more than other teams, the way that they could put games away late, the ways that they can handle killing clock and navigating short yardage with the tush push. And obviously their defense is very good, and all of these types of things do help them pull these games out. But man, I don't understand why you wouldn't be more proactively in a game plan week to week trying to get these receivers going. And it can't be that difficult. You have AJ Brown. I mean, last week when they started getting them going in the second half, the broadcast booth, I'm pretty sure it was Greg Olson. I mean, they were just clowning on the Eagles. They were like, "What are you doing? How was it this hard?" Whoever the play-by-play guy was, he said, like, "Why is it this difficult? You have I can't remember what he called them, but I wrote it up in Stealing Signals. I wrote the quote down because it was so funny, but." He said you have a transformer. I was going to say Megatron, which is a transformer, but I'm like, no, that's Calvin Johnson's nickname. But he said you have a transformer, and he's being guarded by a 5'10", like 180-pound guy. Like, it's not that difficult throwing the ball down the field. Right after AJ Brown had just like mossed the dude, in one-on-one coverage. It's like, it isn't that hard. Anyway, What other games have we not hit on? I try to tiptoe around the Eagles stuff because, first of all, everyone's saying it. It's all over the place, and what can you really add to a discussion like that? But secondly, I mean, they've earned the right to win their way. We didn't talk about the Chargers game too much. Nabers out for the year. Obviously, a really, really tough blow. He's playing at an incredibly high level. I think this looked like a really good fit in the first couple series. I was telling you before, the research I've done on the RPO, like number one wide receiver, target shares. It seemed like with Jackson Dart running a different style of offense where he's going to be a lot more mobile, that when he did throw, it was going to go to Nabers. I mean, it was only a couple catches early, but it seemed like he was finding him. It seemed like that was going to be a good fit. I was excited for Nabers because I thought it was an upgrade from Wilson, mostly from the perspective that Wilson wasn't really, doing too much to help Nabers. Obviously, he had the huge week 2, and then vice versa. I was excited for Dart. Like, you have, a fun first start here. He looks pretty good. This injury is just one of those things. It's brutal because, Nabers was playing at a level we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, like AJ Brown, like the very, very best wide receivers in the NFL. I felt like Dart having that guy as sort of a one read and run guy, like how Fields has been relying on Garrett Wilson. That was just going to be so massive. And then you have Cam Scattaboo feeding off of, what Nabers is. And I'm excited about Scattaboo, but this loss for Nabers is devastating for him. Obviously, anyone who has him, we have a ton of exposure to him. It's really, really rough to lose a player that is as exciting and dynamic as Malik Nabers. Just from the enjoyability of watching football on Sundays, to not be able to watch Malik Nabers this year is like the part of it that was bumming me out. It's like, man, I wanted to see him. He looked so good these first couple of weeks. I wanted to see him fully break out this year. We don't get to see that. We don't get to see it for our fantasy stuff. It's tough for Dart. I do think it's tough for Scattaboo. It's tough for the whole offense. I don't know who Dart's going to throw to. I was saying to you, I mean, I've loved Wan'Dale Robinson. He can't be the number one wide receiver in a passing game. I think Darius Slayton's probably an ad in deeper leagues because, like, stylistically, he's a better fit for what Dart does on the outside and vertically, and he'll probably be helpful for Dart to some degree. I mean, he's out there running a ton of routes. And then, Robinson and Theo Johnson. Like you pointed out to me, Dart didn't really have any passing stats, and my take on that is like he would have if Nabers would have played the full game. But once Nabers is out, like who are you even throwing the ball to? There's just nothing there. It's just so brutal. Anyway,
it is tough. There were some surprising bids last week in FFPC waivers, and Jackson Dart was one of those guys. I like Dart. I think that he was a little bit underrated as a prospect. Certainly, I think where the Giants made the move to draft him, that was a very savvy selection. You did get to see mobility from him today that was almost the entire thing, because this is a game where, you're playing the Los Angeles Chargers, and Justin Herbert has looked like the MVP through 3 weeks. Dart throws for 111 yards. When you include Dart's rushes, they rushed 42 times at a 3.8 clip. Scatterboo, who continued to look very Scatterboo-ish, where he ran very hard, made some guys miss. Also, when it's telegraphed, he's going to have a lot of 0, -1 types of rushes in there as well. So you're going to end up with these lines where you have 25 carries for 79 yards. So if you missed on the goal line carries, which he generally did, it's always a little bit obnoxious when the guy then immediately punches in the 2-point conversion, because you're like, that's not worth nearly as many points.
Yeah.
The shutdown today from the Chargers defense, and as you're discussing, there's nowhere for Dart to go with the ball. Even in a game where he has the 10 carries, 54 yards, touchdown, it's really hard to see how he'll work in fantasy simply because the offense doesn't really have any way to move the ball now, and they don't have any way to score points. They still win this game. This is a game where even if you watched it and even if you're looking at the stats, it's kind of hard to understand how the Chargers accomplished what they did, because they averaged 6 yards per play in this game, which, that's good if you've been looking at what the rest of these teams are doing. Herbert obviously does throw the 2 picks. They are somewhat definitive in the game. We talked about Hampton earlier, how electric he looked. But, from a fantasy perspective, Ben, this one is bizarre because this is yet another game where, the Quentin Johnston breakout continues unabated. He has the long touchdown. He draws 13 targets. McConkey draws only 6. But if you drew 6 and you were efficient, then you could continue on with this idea, which even as someone who said don't draft McConkey at the price, it doesn't really work. I very much have been saying you're still going to be fine. This offense being this dynamic is good for him. There's going to be fluctuations in who gets the targets which week. The 1 for 11, even that you could overlook, but the dynamism is gone. Today he was dropping passes left and right in a game where when it's 21-18, those, in addition to the picks, really helped kind of determine the outcome here. Now, again, McConkey is a young player who was fantastic last year as a rookie. He's going to be good. They'll get this straightened out. But the way that the gap is expanding as opposed to being shut down and moving in McConkey's favor, then it's just stunning.
Yeah, I think Quentin Johnston's just their number one receiver. And I didn't really consider that even after, week 1, but that's just where we're at. He's the big, fast X receiver. The volume's there. It's consistent. They're designing plays for him, first reads, throws to him, targets down the field. It's not just the vertical stuff. It's the vertical stuff and all the stuff around the line of scrimmage. He still doesn't, I was going to say, doesn't look amazing, but he has another long touchdown in this game. There's multiple times that he should have brought in some balls and he doesn't. But as you said, McConkey looked worse. McConkey drops a 3rd down early that they have to have, and it's an easy catch. And it's just what are you doing? You're running a slant. Catch the ball. That's what you're there for.
Well, these are still 2 very different players. But one of the reasons why I always try and push back some when you hear these reviews of guys coming out of college who have fantastic overall profiles, and they're like, oh, well, they dropped some passes. Like Brandon Marshall would lead the NFL in targets and receptions every year, and also in drops. Now, partly it's because you got so many targets, but he would be dropping the ball left and right. I mean, Terrell Owens couldn't catch the ball at all, and he was unstoppable because on every pass he didn't catch, he was likely to go for a touchdown. Now, we're not there with Quentin Johnston, but
yeah, it's different than those guys because those guys could make contested catches. Quentin Johnston literally can't catch the ball unless he's not being touched. If he's got any contact, he can't catch the ball. But, I mean, his touchdown today, there was a little bit. People will point out to me. I'm going to point out that it was after he caught it, he kind of got wrapped around the waist. But that was the closest thing to a contested catch I've seen from Quentin Johnston this year. I mean, anytime there's a little bit of contact on his body. But the problem with my point here is he's constantly wide open. He's big and fast, and he's constantly running in places, and Herbert's hitting him in places where it doesn't matter. It's not contested. It's uncontested. It works. Continuing unabated, as you said, like he's continuing to be entirely open and a focal point. They're designing stuff to get him open. And then, I mean, the big thing you were talking about the Hampton stuff, but like that was coming, right? The pass game has been so aggressive and so dominant, and they were like defenses were going to have to find answers for what the Chargers were actually doing, throwing the ball. And what did it open up? It opened up running lanes, right? Like we get Omarion Hampton. He goes 12 carries, 128 yards in this game. And you mentioned the receiving had started last week. He gets 5 more catches in this game. I felt like that was really noticeable this week as well. I had put that in my notes that the way that he's getting involved in the receiving game is just that logical step, how much they're throwing. It's big for his value. I mean, he looks like a massive hit suddenly. A couple weeks ago, people were talking about him as this huge miss, and 2 games later, I mean, that was a big story of this week. I think you talked about some of the individual performances. You get the Jeanty breakout, you get the Hampton like secondary breakout after last week's breakout. We start to see these rookies come into their own. It's like, this is how they're going to score at the NFL level. This is what they're going to do. This is what they are as a player. Hampton over the last 2 weeks, 6 on 7 targets last week, then 5 on 5 this week, 11 catches on 12 targets over the last 2 games, runs for 198 and 2 touchdowns over those 2 games. I mean, that's a great 3-down profile. Those are good things.
And we see from time to time teams make that investment, and I mean, certainly the Raiders have taken a lot of criticism, and the Raiders selection probably didn't make sense. And yet you can see how it benefits these teams when you have that dynamism at the running back position. You could see it again today with the Detroit Lions. I mean, this was a game today for the Raiders that they had to win. They definitely should have won. And yet, I mean, you say that in a game where Geno Smith threw for 117 yards and 3 picks, and they almost still won because A, like I was mentioning, Max Crosby dominating the Chicago Bears offense, but then B, because Jeanty was a Barry Sanders-esque impact player today.
Yeah, he was incredible. You were just mentioning it's kind of surprising how the Chargers lost, and I was trying to think through how that happened, but I felt like they were not maximizing some of their opportunities. It's surprising as well because they had a decent offensive game, and they hit for another long touchdown with Johnston, and I guess they also hit for a long touchdown with Omarion Hampton. They had 2 pretty long ones. The Johnston 136 yards, the Hampton 154 yards. Maybe the drives. I mean, they weren't moving the ball very consistently. Obviously, Ladd McConkey, the 1 catch on the 6 targets, as you noted. Even Keenan Allen doesn't have a great game. 5 catches, 37 yards. They didn't really have anything else going other than Johnston. Herbert only throws for 203 yards in this game on 41 attempts. Giants just did a pretty good job on the whole passing attack. which did lead again to a really huge rush game. It's kind of fascinating that Hampton runs 128 yards on 12 carries, and they only ran 12 times. Herbert ran once. They ran 13 times, 41 pass attempts for 203 yards. They were far more efficient running the ball, but stuck with the pass the whole game. And it wasn't really due to game script. They were never down by a ton. They went down 11 in the third, but less than 2 minutes of game time later, Hampton had a 54-yard TD run, and they cut it to 3. Still in the third quarter, played the whole fourth quarter down 3. Neither team scored in the fourth quarter. They were down 10 briefly in the second. The Giants went up 10 with a minute 52 left, but they scored a touchdown before half, the Chargers. So both times they went down double digits, they responded with a score. I guess they went down double digits 10-0 early as well. It seems like they responded with the score there as well. So I don't think they were ever down double digits without the ball, because they answered every single time they went down double digits with a scoring drive on their next possession. That is accurate. And yet they had a bunch of additional opportunities with the ball in one-score games, weren't able to get anything going the whole game, were throwing like crazy, never really adjusted, never really tried to get Omarion Hampton the ball more. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, and this is one of those types of games where you do expect to see a big reaction over the following weeks. So that's kind of that downstream effect. If you have a Justin Herbert, not only did you get a bad game from him today, but you may not get the volume that you were hoping for, that you kind of need with his profile. Now, I mean, he did have another 24-yard run where he showed off just how athletic he is, extended the drive there. In the modern NFL, it's so weird to see games like this where you have 18 incomplete passes, you have the multiple interceptions, you have the couple of sacks, and so you end up with so many negative plays. And the way that manifests, not that it usually matters, and these aren't the things that we're trying to track, but when you end up in a situation here where you run 13 fewer plays, and you also end up on the wrong end of the clock by like a full 11 minutes, right? We always kind of joke in, football, softball, what have you, that home runs are rally killers, which they're rally killers you would take any day of the week. But, when you have that Hampton long score combined with picks, combined with a lot of incomplete passes, you have what just is such a different type of environment from what we usually get in 2025, where the good teams, and certainly the Chargers are one of those, are just methodically, painstakingly, very boringly moving the ball down the field in small chunks and dominating the game in a different style. Certainly what we've gotten from Harbaugh in the past is some enthusiasm for that type of dominance. He doesn't exactly have that type of team. And one of the things that I like about him that I think is probably not played up enough is his understanding of his current talent, how you win with that. I don't think that we're to the point yet of saying like JJ McCarthy can't play, but there certainly is a dynamic where he won a national championship with a guy who wasn't required to throw and now may not be able to at the NFL level. With this team and with Justin Herbert, I mean, they've got stars in the passing game, but when you have Hampton as well, when you spent the capital to get that player on your team. The other thing that we have to talk about, similar to the situation with the Ravens, the further
injuries,
loss of
star
offensive linemen. When you're losing stars, even if they're not the skill position guys that we talk about on the show, like Malik Nabers, because those guys are not accruing fantasy points, it still makes a huge difference in reality.
Yeah, they had Mekhi Becton out today. He was their big free agent addition from the Eagles. They had Will Dissly out, does some blocking for him, obviously from the tight end position. And then they lose Joe Alt in the first quarter. He gets carted to the locker room with an ankle injury, never comes back. He's been playing left tackle because their left tackle, Rashawn Slater, was lost for the year in August. He was going to be their right tackle. He played right tackle last year. He's been playing left tackle. So then you're suddenly out both of your former first-round pick tackles that were supposed to be the best tackle duo in the league. Obviously, they have been without Slater all regular season, but to lose Alt as well. But that's part of why I'm like, maybe I mentioned the Becton thing because maybe the Becton's a good run blocker. Maybe the Becton thing led to a game plan that was particularly pass heavy this week with him being out. But the thing I don't understand is with Alt going out in the first quarter, how do you not? And then obviously the successes and failures of the different. I mean, I'm rarely calling for more running, but how do you not try to establish the run a little bit more in this game? Like, I'm calling for them to have established the run a little bit more. And to your point, this is one of those games I was thinking the same thing watching it, that they're going to go back and maybe overcorrect on. I mean, maybe their game plan next week will be a little bit too run heavy. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. Obviously, they got to 3-0, throwing the ball aggressively and effectively. But to lose to a rookie in his first career start, 0-3 team, wasn't a good game for the Chargers.
No, it puts everybody back in the AFC West. Unfortunately, the Raiders did not pull off their victory, so they stay further behind. Then before we go, I do feel like I have to comment on the performance of one Jerry Jeudy who...
Do you have to?
I mean, he and I need to apologize to the world and just be like, we don't know what we were thinking, right? The 9 targets today, 3 catches, 48 yards. He was actually getting open today, which sometimes getting open only reveals to everyone
that you can't catch.
That you simply cannot catch the ball. It's been an unmitigated disaster. Joe Flacco, 16 for 34. Quentin Shawn continues to look pretty decent. The other thing that was disappointing, Harold Fannin, 6 targets, 2 for 24. He had at least 1 drop and a couple other opportunities. Our guys didn't show up. They looked bad. It was depressing.
Yeah, it was very bad. Flacco didn't look great overall, but you can't really put it on him when there's a sequence where Fannin has a tough drop late on a deep shot, goes right through his arms, and then 2 plays later, I think that was first down, and then it was 2 plays later on a tough third down. Jeudy, kind of an extended play, Flacco puts one out there, and Jeudy has one go right through his arms, and you're like, can either of you guys catch this 25, 30-yard play so one of you can have the stats? My God.
And, I mean, the Jeudy drop at that point wouldn't have been as bad if it weren't like his 3rd or 4th drop of the game. So that part was too bad. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 7 for 70 and 2. He looks fantastic.
Okay, but people have been saying Jerry Jeudy sucks for a really long time. And since he does suck, I do want to remind people that there was a stretch last year where these were his yardage totals: 142, 85, 235, 64, 108, 20, 94, 63. That's how we ended the season, final 8 games last year. And actually the 2 before that were both 70-yard plus yard games as well. His final 10 games last year, absurd. Averaged 96.3 yards per game over his final 10 games. 3 of his early games last year, he only had 1 catch because he was playing with Deshaun Watson. It was not working. Maybe he can turn on a little bit like this year. Maybe not. But for anyone
this is an evidence-based show. I mean, there's a reason. There are many, many reasons beyond even those things that we like Jerry Jeudy.
I'm just saying, if anyone's doing the revisionist history thing where it's like, yeah, Jerry Jeudy sucks and he's always sucked, I mean, he was pretty good last year.
He was sensational at Alabama. He had massive air yards as a rookie. He's never played with a good quarterback, which is continuing. Right? Yeah. Joe Flacco is playing awful football. But you can't put all of the drops today on Joe Flacco. And there were many. Many. It was completely dispiriting. Dylan Sampson had 1 carry for -2 yards in case anybody loses their game by a 10th and somehow had Dylan Sampson in the lineup.
Yeah, Judkins, you noted, looks really good. He's sort of a must-start player at this point. I mean, the Lions are a tough run D. He runs well. He gets all of the goal line work. He gets some early down targets because of Flacco. They use Sampson as an RB2 early. Ford ends up playing a little bit as well. But, I mean, Judkins has been the story for the Browns basically since he started playing for them. He's been the whole offense, and he looks good.
Yeah, this was a game today where you wouldn't necessarily know it from the final score, but the Cleveland Browns defense played well. And when there are a variety of ways that you can look at that, certainly they gave Jared Goff plenty of troubles, doesn't throw for 200 yards, can't hook up with Jameson Williams, throws 8 passes to him, only 2 were complete. They locked down David Montgomery, who carries 9 times for 12 yards. I was joking with my sister today, Ben, that even David Montgomery, the quintessential, like, hardest-nosed player in football, and would probably tell you that if he was forced to encounter all 11 defenders in the backfield, he would be completely up for that. He would just have a little bit bigger breakfast and take all those guys on. But at some point on some of those plays, when he was in the backfield, like a little misdirection for David Montgomery, so he doesn't. I mean, we're probably the show in the entire world that is like biggest gap between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. The gap today wasn't fair. They were just handing the play call to the Cleveland Browns and saying, if you want 3 guys in the backfield against David Montgomery, go ahead and do that. And the Browns were
it's like he had such a good game last week. They're like, we can't let him keep having good games and then have people think that he needs to play more. We need Gibbs out there on the field, so we got to make him look really bad. Gibbs, Shawn, we were talking, I compared like Worthy to him in a way that, I mean, the way that he bounced that run and scored, there's the speed and quickness combo that it's not just good in space, but it really shows up in those tight areas where he's just so tough for anybody to hit square, and he's able to move around defenders in small spaces. And then also at any point, he will beat you to the edge, which he ends up doing on that TD turn on the corner, tiptoeing inside the pylon. It's not like he has to dive for the pylon. He'll just turn the corner on you and tiptoe inside of the pylon. And it's like you weren't even close to pushing him out of bounds. Like, I mean, he's a very fun runner to watch.
As he came out, we kept doing all of these Jahmyr Gibbs is the next Jamal Charles articles at RotoViz. And I mean, I can't believe it's worked out that way. I mean, he really is. Jamal Charles is still the most singular back that I've ever had a chance to watch. I mean, Barry Sanders was different in a way that it's just, I mean, no one is remotely like Barry Sanders. But right. Jamal Charles, his ability in the interior was crazy. They would over and over hand him the ball up the middle. He would run through the line, and you'd be like, I am watching this on TV. There is no hole there. He would go through it like he was invisible. Well, I mean, invisibility doesn't help you. Like he's a ghost, right? Like you're not even a material being. You're through that, and then at the second level, he would beat the guy, and then he'd be gone. And we're seeing that week after week with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. The Jameson thing I just got to add, there was, I think he said 8 targets. There was another one where there was a free play, and Goff was like, I'm throwing everything else at Jameson. I'll throw this one up to him. He underthrew him. Goff was missing him pretty bad. His arm got deflected on one. The one where he threw it like way to Jameson's outside shoulder. I don't really know who that was on, but Jameson had to like spin his head around and then try to catch it. Didn't pick up the ball really well enough. And I mean, that's a drop, but he had to spin over the opposite shoulder. And then he underthrew him on a couple, but he underthrew one for a pick. He did hit him with a shorter throw, and then Jameson dropped that one that was right on his hands. It was like a 15-yard gain. And you're just like, I mean, Josh Hermsmeyer, who, did the first work on air yards, used to, I think he was, maybe somebody else came up with the term prayer yards, but some of the guys, it was like, these are prayer yards. Like it felt like today, Jameson Williams were all prayer yards. Goff was just like, I'm just going to chuck the ball near your vicinity.
But Calvin Ridley every year racks up like 1,000 air yards on passes that are not even ever attempted to be completed. All of these passes to Jameson Williams had intent to complete behind them, and yet this is still where we ended up. That was the level of performance from Goff to Williams combined. You mentioned the one where his arm got kind of contacted, where you get that non-interception simply because, I mean, Jameson Williams was open, but there was a defender trailing him, but the pass was thrown so far behind the guy trailing him that it wasn't picked off. Anyway, the Lions still won easily, but they did leave some plays on the field. Ben, another fun week of football. It's always fun to come and chat with you, as so many of the listeners probably have. I've got a ton of absolutely fantastic Malik Nabers teams. So sort of the overlapping things of what might have been with Xavier Worthy on the same day we lose Malik Nabers. Certainly some disappointment there, but football's so much fun. And we got a bunch of great plays, and it's always fun to chat with one of your buddies. Hopefully some people listening found at least a little bit of catharsis in enjoying the show with us.
Yeah, hopefully it's a reminder that this is kind of a brutal hobby. At the same time, I do think 2025 as a season so far has been a reminder as well that the ways that we like to play, target the young, exciting players, the breakouts, the ones the market's, not charging you full price for yet because they don't really know what they are yet. For the most part, it's been a season that's, I think, we've only gotten through 4 weeks. It's proven that, but you also see that, the young players can get hurt. Malik Nabers year 2 can get hurt. Xavier Worthy year 2 guy can get hurt, and it can derail their seasons as well. Obviously some of the old guys have gotten hurt too. You have like Mike Evans is out, and some of those guys, and those things can happen to anyone. It's a brutal sport and all that, but hopefully, that's part of why we like to play a lot of teams. I'm hoping when I go dig into our teams that I find some teams to be really optimistic about, because I do think we have some fun ones with some of the young guys that are hitting, and hopefully our listeners have, a couple teams and don't have Nabers on all of them. I have Nabers everywhere, dude. I have him on. I was telling you, I have him on like guillotine teams. I have him on like my home league teams. And he's playing incredible. It's a bummer.
Yeah. And obviously the person for whom it's the hardest today is Malik Nabers himself. Always thinking of those guys as their lives and careers are impacted, and hopefully they can recover as quickly as possible. So good luck to everybody on Monday Night Football. Hopefully you're able to listen to this in good time. As we mentioned, our executive producer, Colin Kelly, traveling back from Dublin, so we'll see when he's able to get things up. But we've had fun with you guys. Good luck finishing out week 4. Good luck in week 5. We love you. We'll talk to you soon.